The Apocalypse of John, the last book of the Bible, has been the source of many interpretations and controversies throughout history. Various historical events have been associated with its enigmatic chapters, with theorists claiming that even though the end of the world has not yet come to pass, many of the revelations are already a tangible reality. This book, considered one of the most complex in the Bible, speaks of cataclysmic and final events that generate both fear and fascination, mainly due to its powerful and symbolic images. The Bible, this great literary and religious work, is divided into the Old and New Testaments. Among the Gospels that have been widely accepted and incorporated into the official canon, the Apocalypse stands out for its unique and provocative nature. While other texts such as the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are indisputably recognized, the Apocalypse has always generated doubts, especially regarding its authorship and the interpretation of its messages. Some scholars point out that the complexity and mysteries contained in this book make it difficult to believe that it was written by just one person, as was traditionally claimed by the Church. Historically, the Catholic Church attributed the authorship of the Book of Revelation to the Apostle John, Jesus' beloved disciple. However, more recent studies indicate that the author of this enigmatic book may not be the same John of the Gospels. Analysis of language, style, and content reveal discrepancies that suggest the possibility that the book was written by more than one person, or perhaps by a group of early Christian prophets. This evidence also points to a Palestinian Jewish origin of early Christianity, reinforcing the idea that Revelation is a testimony of the first Christian communities in the midst of great historical and spiritual challenges. Furthermore, the precise dating of the Apocalypse remains controversial, with some currents suggesting that it was written around 68 AD, while others argue that its origin may have occurred in the 2nd century, more precisely around 125 AD in. The content of the Book of Revelation, one of the most frightening and symbolic images, is that of the 4 horsemen who appear with the opening of the 7 seals. Each horseman represents an archetypal figure associated with different plagues that will strike humanity at the end of time. The first horseman, riding a white horse and wielding a bow, is often interpreted as a symbol of justice, purity, and victory. However, these positive qualities are also intertwined with the symbolism of a devastating war that could threaten global peace and stability. The second rider, on a red horse, personifies war and bloodshed, while his sharp sword adds to the sense of impending destruction. The third rider, on his black horse, holds a scale, a symbol of scarcity and imbalance. His presence suggests that the end of the world will bring with it misery and hunger, catastrophes that will be felt by all of humanity. Finally, the fourth rider appears on a pale yellow horse, a spectre that personifies fear, disease, and the end of life. This rider carries with him the representation of death, which is approaching inexorably and inevitably. These images, although chilling, are only part of the vast and complex symbolism of John's Apocalypse. The book not only describes cataclysmic events and visions of destruction, but also conveys profound messages of hope, faith, and the promise of a new heaven and a new earth for the righteous. This balance between terror and hope is what makes the Apocalypse such an intriguing and challenging work for scholars and believers over the centuries. The Apocalypse of John, one of the most striking and mysterious texts in the Bible, presents a sequence of catastrophic and cosmic events that still leave readers intrigued and fearful. With each seal opened, the future of humanity seems to be sealed, with the promise of divine judgments that will come with great fury. The book describes moments of great anguish, but also of revelations about God's power and justice, especially when the 5th seal is reached. The moment the 5th seal is opened, a dramatic scene is revealed. The souls of the martyrs, those who died because of their faith and their witness in the name of God, are under the altar, crying out for justice. They ask in anguish, "How long, O holy and true sovereign, will you wait to judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood?" This cry of despair represents a plea for divine intervention, a demand for justice that has not yet materialized. These martyrs, although dead, continue to influence earthly events and bring to the surface the tension between good and evil that defines the Apocalypse. And it is precisely at this point that the sixth seal is opened, unleashing even more terrifying events: earthquakes, the sun turning black, the moon turning blood red, and stars falling from the sky. These images, which evoke an apocalyptic scenario in all its fullness, signal that the end is approaching, and with it, inevitable retribution. The sixth seal also highlights a crucial moment of separation. Humanity will be divided between those who are faithful and those who are not. There will be no refuge, no caves or mountains where the unfaithful can hide, for God's judgment will be unstoppable. In this scenario, the figures of the 144,000 chosen ones, described as sealed by God, gain central importance, as they are the ones protected during this period of judgment. They are presented as the faithful, who, although they may suffer, will have divine protection. With the opening of the seventh seal, a new and even more devastating cycle begins. The earth, as if being consumed by God's wrath, faces a series of natural disasters. A rain of blood and fire that destroys a third of the planet, a mountain of fire that throws itself into the sea, destroying living beings and ships, and a poisonous star that poisons the waters, making a third of them unfit for consumption. The abyss opens, releasing Abaddon and a legion of locusts that will torment humanity for 5 months. As if that wasn't enough, the sixth trumpet sounds, releasing 4 angels who are responsible for the deaths of a third of the world's population. Even in the face of so much destruction, the hearts of the remnants of humanity remain obstinate. They continue to refuse to convert, to resist God's call, which reinforces the idea that the end of humanity will be marked by resistance to the divine and the persistence of sin. But apocalyptic events, although they portray a bleak future, have been used throughout history as a way of explaining catastrophes and tragedies occurring in the present. Over the centuries, countless Christians have tried to interpret the signs of the apocalypse as a foretaste of events to come. Wars, plagues, natural disasters, and other evils were often seen as precursors to the end of the world described in the Bible. Even important figures in history, such as Pope Sylvester II, who at the beginning of the 1000th millennium declared that the apocalypse would happen that year, contributed to the spread of fear and expectation. When the year passed and nothing happened, many Christians felt a great sense of relief, but also a certain frustration. The earth still existed, and the fears of the end had dissipated, at least for the time being. Not long after, other religious leaders also tried to date the apocalypse. The Protestant reformer Martin Luther, for example, predicted the end in 1532, but when that date passed without the expected occurrence, he adjusted his prediction to 1538 and again to 1541. In the end, Luther gave up trying to guess the future, recognizing that the apocalypse could not be understood or predicted by mere men. These failed attempts to predict the end of the world are at heart a reflection on the complexity and mysteries of John's apocalypse. The central message of his work remains a warning that, although the end times are inevitable, the most important thing is one's spiritual preparation. The apocalypse is not just a set of catastrophic events, but a call to conversion, vigilance, and faith. Over the years, various religious groups, such as the Jehovah's Witnesses, have published specific dates for the apocalypse, anticipating the end of the world. However, as history has shown, these predictions have not come true. Among the years mentioned are 1872, 1914, 1925, 1975, and 2000. The year 2000 in particular was marked by widespread fear due to rumors of the millennium bug. This technical problem, which was supposed to affect computer systems around the world at the turn of the millennium, caused great panic. Many people mistakenly associated this possible technological collapse with the biblical apocalypse, further fueling collective anxiety, even though this event had absolutely nothing to do with John's apocalyptic predictions. The phenomenon of trying to relate current events to the prophecies of the apocalypse also continues to be a common practice. Nowadays, with the impact of the coronavirus pandemic and international conflicts, especially the war between Russia and Ukraine, many people find parallels between these events and the frightening images described in the book of John. The pandemic, with its new variants and the increase in deaths, is seen by some as a sign that the apocalypse is already underway. Similarly, the conflict between Russians and Ukrainians, which threatens to expand into a world war, is also interpreted by many as a possible fulfillment of John's predictions. The fear that we are on the brink of a global collapse is palpable, with a growing sense that the world could be heading for a devastating fate. This idea that we are living in apocalyptic times with deadly diseases and nuclear weapons at stake is a disturbing reality. Nowadays, the presence of weapons of mass destruction and the risk of new outbreaks of viral diseases make it even easier to imagine an apocalyptic scenario where the events described in the book of John come true. War, death, and destruction seem to get closer every day, and the threat of a global catastrophe seems imminent. John's metaphor, with its horsemen and seals, seems to be reflected in modern chaos, where the signs of war and plague are evident. In biblical history, God often destroyed entire cities and nations with fire when wickedness and faithlessness reached their peak. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, for example, were consumed by fire as an expression of divine judgment. If this same logic is applied to the modern world, some believe that just as in ancient times, God could destroy the earth in an act of judgment if there are no more believers to intercede or save the world. If this is true, then the only way to escape this apocalyptic fate would be to stand firm in faith until the end. However, the big issue is that, despite devotion and faith, the time of destruction is completely in God's hands. The apocalypse, as described by John, is something that cannot be controlled or predicted by human beings. It will take place in time and according to divine will, and no one can really know when it will happen. This brings us to a crucial point. In times of crisis, such as those we are living through, many people look for answers and quick solutions, trying to find signs of the apocalypse in everything that happens around them. However, the real message of Revelation is not so much about predicting the end of the world, but about living with faith and perseverance, regardless of the circumstances. The central message of the book is the call to vigilance, prayer, and spiritual preparation for what is to come, regardless of when or how it will occur. True protection, according to Revelation, lies not in human actions, but in faith in God, and trust that in the end, His plan will be fulfilled. Thank you for watching this video. Leave your like and subscribe to the Living Hope channel on YouTube. Activate notifications by clicking on the bell to receive other publications.